Over on Alternet, Rima Rigas wrote a piece called Bernie Bias. The mainstream media undermines Sanders at every turn. The pattern is to ignore, downplay, and mischaracterize Sanders' positions. And if you haven't noticed this going on, you haven't been watching the news or listening to the radio news, or for that matter, reading the New York Times. They start out talking, or Rima Rigas talks about Maggie Haberman over at the New York Times, and how since joining the staff of the New York Times, Maggie Haberman has written about Sanders on fewer than a handful of occasions, while she's written about the other candidates in the race more often. It makes no sense for Martin O'Malley to have more articles written about him than Bernie Sanders has written about him. Senator Sanders' ability to succeed is always described in doubtful terms, even as Hillary Clinton's troubles in the polls are being described. New York Times has published fewer than a dozen pieces that are Sanders campaign specific, and each is problematic in the way that he is portrayed. Usually they highlight his age and his hair, and they call him a socialist, whereas socialist and democratic socialist are not interchangeable terms. They note the most harmful way anti-Sanders media bias has been manifested is by omission. They just ignore him. Bernie Sanders' campaign is centered around economic justice, his plans to reform banking, taxation, trade, stimulate the economy, promote manufacturing, and home institute job programs. And this author says, I've yet to see a side-by-side comparison of the top two Democratic candidates' prescriptions for the U.S. economy. Or, frankly, for pretty much anything else, which is pretty unfortunate. I mean, I can give you a side-by-side on just some issues, but, this is no doubt going to offend some folks and maybe not others. But this is the kind of stuff that I think that the press should be talking about. They don't. On pro-choice, both Bernie and Hillary Clinton have a 100% narrow pro-choice record. On gay marriage, Bernie has been a lifetime supporter of gay marriage since the 1980s, and Hillary has been since 2010. On protecting civil rights, the ACLU gives Bernie Sanders a 93% rating, Hillary Clinton a 75% rating, both very good. On spying on U.S. citizens, Bernie voted no 2 times on the Patriot Act and guarantees to end warrantless spying if he becomes president. Hillary Clinton voted twice yes on the Patriot Act and has no comment on ending domestic spying. On Edward Snowden, bulk data collection, whistleblowing, Bernie Sanders said Snowden was defending American freedom, and Hillary said, I can never condone Snowden's actions. Now, a caveat to that, she said that while she was a member of the administration who is trying to prosecute Snowden. So I don't see how, as Secretary of State, she could have said anything else. With regard to wars, the Iraq War in 2002, the Syria War, the Libya War, the Afghanistan surge, Bernie voted no, 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 and no. Hillary Clinton voted yes, 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 and yes. On regulating Wall Street, Bernie voted to keep Glass-Steagall. He voted against Phil Graham's blowing up of Glass-Steagall and voted for other regulatory bills. Hillary Clinton has praised doing away with Glass-Steagall and has not commented on other bills. Trans-Pacific Partnership, trade deals, offshoring, Bernie's opposed to all of them. He voted against the TPP. He voted against NAFTA. He voted against CAFTA. He voted against the WTO. Hillary Clinton has called the TPP the gold standard of trade agreements and has praised NAFTA, which her husband passed. Campaign finance reform, Bernie has authored constitutional amendments reversing Citizens United and refuses to take super PAC money. Hillary Clinton says that she supports reform, which is great. I mean, this is something you're not going to hear from a Republican. And she's trying to raise over $1 billion from super PACs and banks and whatnot, which is tragically what it takes to win an election these days. Or maybe not. Maybe Bernie can show us some brand new model. It'd be brand new to the modern age anyway. On climate change, Bernie has actually proposed a carbon tax. Hillary opposes a carbon tax. And on Keystone XL pipeline, Hillary was an early supporter. Now she has no comment on it. Bernie has consistently opposed it. So that's the kind of, let's compare apples to apples discussion, for example, that has not happened anywhere in the media because they will not talk about these issues. They go back and say Paul Krugman, for example, has on 3 different occasions. Paul Krugman, an editorial writer for the New York Times. Again, I keep telling you, it's not liberal or conservative. It's insiders versus outsiders. Paul Krugman, very proud of his insider status. He has on 3 occasions talked up Hillary Clinton's economic platform, specifically on wages, without so much as mentioning Sanders. On July 27th, Bernie Sanders gave a major speech to the SCLC, the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. It got virtually no attention from the press whatsoever, which is pretty astonishing, given that the press, at every opportunity points out that a Social Security event that Bernie Sanders was one of a dozen people invited to speak at, when he got up to speak, it got interrupted by these two women from Black Lives Matter. They talk about that constantly. They don't talk about the fact that he got a warm welcome from the SCLC. Over at Vox, they note coverage of Sanders by everyone but Ezra Klein has been mostly overtly negative. And it continues. So the media is very enthusiastic about asking questions about Bernie. He's a socialist, and the old Chris Matthews thing. Does he really want government to take over everything? Well, no, Chris, you got to look up democratic socialist in the dictionary. Probably a novel idea, but